a train is coming. Not the Mugen train. Even though, honestly, some of the New York trains and everything might as well be the Mugen train. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished guests, welcome to the Library of Rhodes. On this first edition of the Rhodes Movie Club, I really want to talk about the new Demon Slayer movie, the very first part of the Infinity Castle arc. I've been watching the Demon Slayer anime since I want to say like late 2019, early 2020. It was like one of my COVID shows. I love this show so much. I think the main thing that draws me into it is the animation. It is so fluid, it is so vibrant. It's something I would never really expect on TV. I would have to say the thing that really hooked me into the show is one of the final scenes from the very first season. And it gets to like an emotional height where like the spider demon is saying, "Oh, I'll kill you and make your sister my sister," since his whole thing is he wants a family. And it comes to a head, kind of ironically, when Tanjiro, the main character, is about to slice through the demon's head, and the sister Nezuko does like her like demon magic on his sword to make it burst into flames, and it is this vibrant mess of like reds and pinks and blues as he is trying to slice through this demon's head. And I was just in awe when I first saw that. It hooked me right then and there. I'm like, I need to watch more of this. If this is what the animation studio can do on a primary season, if they could do that in this very first season, I can't wait to see what they do with everything else. I've been watching since the very first season it aired. Funnily enough, when the very first movie came out, that was my very first movie in theaters after COVID. That's how excited I was. That was what I was willing to go back to a theater for, because I knew that Ufotable, not really sure how to pronounce it, if they were able to do that much with like a TV budget and those resources, I could not imagine what they could do with a movie level budget. And they did not disappoint in the Mugen Train movie. I am like such a big fan of this show that I've even gone to the movies to see like the episode compilations they put out right before a new season airs, when they have like the last episode or two of the previous season and the very first episode of the new season about to come out. And they put that in theaters just to watch it on the big screen. And it is astounding every single time. So when the last season had finished and they had announced they were in production of the next arc, which is the final arc in the show, the Infinity Castle arc, I was so excited for it. At the very end, they announced it's not only just going to be a movie, it's going to be a trilogy of movies. Oh my god. I was like jumping when I saw that, even though I know it's going to take a while to get all three of those movies. Like the first movie had just released in America earlier this week. That was about a year, maybe a little more, after they had announced that it was going to be coming out. I do not expect the next movie to come out for another like year and a half, 2 years, because they put that much effort into the animation. So I saw the first part of the Infinity Castle in theaters. I went the other day and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. So I thought I would just like sit down and try and like gush about it as much as I can to anybody that's willing to listen. When I saw it in theaters, I saw it dubbed in English, because when I'm experiencing the story for the first time, don't really want to go back and forth between everything going on with like the action and everything and trying to read all the subtitles. I've watched the show both dubbed and sub, because I honestly think that the sub is better than the dub. Some people like some of the dub voices, which some are very good, but I just prefer the original Japanese voices. Still very good. So I was so excited for this movie. I did not look at the runtime before buying my ticket, before making it to the theater. I thought it was going to be like an hour and a half, maybe hour and 45 minutes. So my showing of the movie started around like 7:45, let's say. I was expecting credits to start rolling maybe around like 9:15. We get to a certain point, which I'll talk about later. I'm like, oh, are they gonna like introduce this part and then like do like a cliffhanger for the next movie? Because I'm looking at my watch at one point and it's like 9 o'clock, 9:10. They keep going. This movie ended up being 2.5 hours long. I'll be real. My bladder couldn't take it. I had to walk out at one point in the movie. I came back, obviously, but 2.5 hours, man. You need a break at that point. So the main thing that everyone loves Demon Slayer for is that animation, and Ufotable did not disappoint when it comes to the animation in this movie. It was top tier. Like, yes, all of the fight scenes were incredibly animated, and that is just like the pinnacle of the movie. But I think best animation for it is when you're following all of the crows as they're flying through the Infinity Castle, and like you're just tracking them as they're like, flying in and around all these towers that are appearing and disappearing, as they're trying to map out this vast place to try and like find all the upper rank demons, find all of the main characters, and just like relay as much information as possible. Now, like I said, this movie was 2.5 hours long, and I'm not complaining. Like, if I could watch more of Demon Slayer at that high quality, I would. I would be sat for the whole time. But because of the length and how like all the story beats were laid out, it kind of messed with the pacing a little bit. Like, they would have part of a fight scene and then do part of like a flashback, backstory kind of deal. And they did that probably like a little bit too much because it broke up the flow of certain fights, broke up the flow of the backstories. I would be fine with them breaking the one-to-oneness with the manga if it would introduce a better flow to everything, where like instead of having, and I'm making these numbers up, like a minute and a half of a fight scene and then going to like a 3-minute part of the backstory section to go back to another minute and a half of fighting to go to like another set of characters for like 30 seconds to go back to that fight scene for like 30 seconds and then like so on and so forth. That was like my major like gripe with the movie, let's say, was that pacing. It mainly affected the first like hour, hour and a half of the movie because the back hour and a half is one not continuous fight scene, but it's only focused on that one fight scene. Those are most of my thoughts in like the general sense, without going into like too much spoilers. Now I want to go into a bit more detail into what I liked and I didn't like about specific things in the movie. So with that out of the way, I'll go into a bit more like spoiler territory with things that went on in each of the fights. There were like 3 main fights that happened. So the first major fight of the movie is between Shinobu, the insect Hashira, and the upper rank 2 demon Doma. I really liked this fight for just like the emotional stakes, at least on Shinobu's side, since Doma is the one that killed her big sister. I just wish that it lasted a little bit longer, and something that this movie does is like they hammer things a little bit too much, and they bring up Shinobu isn't that strong of a demon slayer. That's why her sword isn't the normal like, shape of its sword. It has like part of it cut out so it's lighter for her to handle and it's easy for her to stab a demon with, to inject them with poison, which they bring up in the first fight that she's ever in on the Spider Demon Mountain. They say, oh, she's like too small to like swing the sword all the way through. That's why she just poisons all the demons. They say that a few times during the fight. She brings up multiple times, oh, I wish I was a little bit bigger like my sister so I could do like a full like sword swing through a demon. That's something I wish they cut out completely and maybe add like an extra scene or two, maybe not even a scene, maybe just some like more dialogue between the sisters to get more emotional stakes out of the battle. Because she does put up a really good fight against Doma, but he just uses demon bullshit powers to like overpower her, saying, oh, I'm already like getting used to the different poisons, give me another one, let's see how that one works out. I kind of wish she was able to develop her demon slayer mark, because I feel like it would have been like a cool design with like insects and stuff, maybe even add like flowers in it to be a reference to her sister. that didn't end up happening because Doma ends up killing her. Which I was kind of shocked by, that they actually let her die. Only because like the only death that has happened so far in the series with all the Hashira is Rengoku. And honestly, her death was like more brutal than Rengoku. Like, even though Rengoku had like a hole punched through him and he was exhausted, lost a lot of blood, Doma cracked her spine in multiple places. So Shinobu will be missed in this series. I kind of wish she would have lasted. But I have the biggest feeling that even though she's gone, she won't have an effect on the battle going forward. And I don't mean like an emotional effect, because her student comes in, sees her getting murdered by this demon, but right before Shinobu dies, she does like this like hand signal to her student Kanao, say, "Don't come closer." And if she planned that far ahead with her student to say like, "Oh, don't come here," and just have it a twitch of the finger, she must have like planned something ahead to get rid of this demon. Since she is like so proficient with poisons, I really think that she covered herself in poison, or like she ingested a lot of poison that like she's only immune to, because like she knows that the demon would try to eat her or do something with her body that would pass the poison onto him, and it'd be like so potent that even he couldn't cure himself of it fast enough. And honestly, I don't know what's the worst fate for her corpse, just to be eaten like a normal demon would eat, and what he was doing to his captive women when she first entered his domain area, or what he actually ended up doing to the body, which is just like absorb it, which was really weird. So hopefully either way, there is like some kind of potent poison in her system that just infects Doma and allows Kanao to kill him. Between Zenitsu and the new Upper Rank 6, who used to be his old fellow student to the Thunder Hashira, something that they hammer in a little too much would be that they're kind of complements to each other, where Zenitsu only really knows the very first technique in the thunder breathing style, and now the very last one with the seventh form, which was really cool looking, kind of combining the sun breathing ish that Tanjiro does with his thunder breathing to create this like fire thunder dragon kind of effect. But when I saw that, I was like giddy in my seat. They kind of hammer in a little bit too much that they're complements to each other, where Zenitsu only knows the very first technique of the thunder breathing style and Kaigaku knows everything else. They say it to each other multiple times in the fight. They say it a couple times in like the backstory and the flashbacks for the fight. I feel like they could have like mentioned it once when they were fighting each other, and then like the only other time in like a flashback where a couple of students are saying that yes, Kaigaku knows everything else, but he doesn't know the literal basic of it, so he's not that strong. I feel like those should have been like the only two times that they mentioned it, but they mentioned it another like time or two in addition to those, so kind of hitting the nail on the head with that one. I really enjoyed that Zenitsu was able to have a kind of like one final conversation with his master, which he owed a lot to, even though it was just a like a dreamscape. He's just like passing out from the fight. I thought there was like a sweet moment between them, and Alex Lee, the voice actor, does a very good job doing all this. I just have a like kind of criticism with Zenitsu's character. He is like a very good character. They established that from the beginning, but they rely too much on him being like a whiny, screamy coward unless he is asleep for most of the series. And then he is absent from the Swordsmith Village arc, where I feel like they could have done like a little bit more of like character development to have him be a bit more serious, because it just flips a switch during the Hashira training arc when he finds out his master had committed seppuku because Kaigaku became a demon. Then Zenitsu gets serious about the whole thing. Like in the final scenes of the Hashira training arc, he is like very like serious trying to find Kaigaku, but I feel like that's a bit too drastic of a personality shift. I feel like it would have been a little bit better if he started to get a bit more serious in the show, and then losing his master pushes him off the cliff to being a completely serious character, but they didn't really do that much. Honestly, with favorite characters in Demon Slayer, I feel like most people are in like one of two camps where you either really like Zenitsu or you really like Inosuke. And I am in the Inosuke camp, especially in like the sub version of it. And I am not upset. That is like way too strong of an emotion for an animated movie. But I kind of wish he was involved in it more. For the most part in the movie, he was just relegated to like two scenes, one where he's chasing a crow, and then just like a flashback for Tanjiro to develop a new power, basically. I'm really excited to see Inosuke in the next movie. So that fight between Shinobu and Doma, and then the Zenitsu and Kaigaku fight made up maybe the first hour and 15 minutes of the movie. So that's why I thought that they were gonna like maybe cut off there, or maybe even do like a cliffhanger with the next fight, which is gonna be Tanjiro, Giyu, and Akaza. But no, they kept going with the full fight with Akaza. And honestly, that was the highlight of this movie. All the fighting between Giyu and Akaza, Giyu unlocking the Demon Slayer mark, Tanjiro basically getting his revenge to a degree for Rengoku's death. You would think that avenging Rengoku would be like the emotional crux of this fight, since both Giyu and Tanjiro had a connection with Rengoku. But no, the emotional crux of this fight was all in Akaza. You wouldn't think that this martial arts demon that you hated in the first movie, despised, wanted to see him beheaded 7 ways to Sunday, would end up being the thing that would bring people to tears over the story. And it was a really deep emotional story. I was like really feeling for Akaza. I didn't cry in the theater, but I was like, oh my god, this man has been through it several times in his like short human life. Like his dad was violently ill and they could not afford medicine for him, so he had to resort to stealing to get money to pay for that medicine. And then when the father found out that his illness was causing his son that he cared so deeply for to resort to this life of crime just to care for him, the dad took his own life, which was just like the first emotional hit of this story. There's at least 2 more. That is until he meets his new teacher that basically forces him to become his martial arts student. This is where there was a surprise casting. Maybe like a week ago, like I forget if it was the Crunchyroll YouTube channel or some anime YouTube channel, like anime studio YouTube channel, put up a video about some of the recording of the voices for this movie. I was watching it, it was cool, it was like a minute and a half. Channing Tatum jump scare. Like it shows him in the studio doing a couple voices, and I was not expecting him to be in this movie. They had not announced it before this video, to my knowledge. And I'm gonna be honest, Channing Tatum wasn't half bad as Akaza's martial arts teacher. You could like tell a little bit it was Channing Tatum's voice, but he did like not a half bad job. And he was in multiple scenes in that backstory. So Channing Tatum, as the teacher, takes in Akaza to be his martial arts student and to help take care of his sick daughter. And it just reminds Akaza of his father and how he couldn't help his father in any way. So he's trying his best to take care of this girl who is about the same age as him. So time passes. He takes care of this sick girl, and as they grow up, they talk more and more. Something that she brings up is that there's this fireworks show that goes on in the town, and how it would be nice if the two of them could go see it, but she is still not feeling better. She has just like mysterious like 1800s I'm a sick person disease. And Akaza says, oh, let's just go next year when you're better, if you're not better now. If you're not better then, we could go the next year. That optimism really brings out like hope in her to actually get better and brings her even closer to Akaza, to the point when they're now 18 years old. She basically proposes to him as the fireworks are going off beside them, kind of fulfilling that promise that he made to her that they would see the fireworks eventually. That's the second emotional gut punch of this story, the happy kind though. And it does not last long, because this like rival dojo to his teacher, which does a completely different martial arts style, it does like kendo and sword fighting, is pissy that they can't beat him. So you know what they do? They poison the well water and kill the teacher and the daughter. And that sets Akaza off on the warpath to murder everyone in that dojo to the point where they can't identify bodies. They cannot identify people's corpses in that dojo because he just obliterated those people with his bare fists. And this just emotionally ruins Akaza. And remembering all of his human memories, that third emotional gut punch of losing his master and his future wife and what he could have been, just breaks Akaza's fighting spirit, which is his main thing. That's his gimmick, is fighting to becoming the strongest person around, because he wants to die. Like, Tanjiro technically won because he beheaded him, but somehow he's still alive. He's like in the middle of evolving as a demon where cutting off his head does not kill him. But just remembering all these things makes him want to be the kind of man his father wanted, and the man he wanted to be for his future wife. So he's able to like turn off his regenerative abilities and just turn to dust like a normal demon would when they're defeated. So I felt the pacing wasn't as big of an issue in this part of the movie, since it focused solely on Tanjiro figuring out how to defeat Akaza by suppressing his fighting spirit and his want to kill Akaza, Akaza's whole backstory, as well as like the fight scenes between Giyu and Akaza, Tanjiro and Akaza, the two of them together against Akaza. Take a shot every time I say Akaza in this video, you will not make it to the end. So since the whole last hour and a half focused on that, the pacing wasn't as big of an issue there. So even though I was expecting them to start that final fight, cut it off at some point as like a cliffhanger, and have the rest of it in the next movie to keep the runtime maybe closer to 2 hours, I'm really glad that they didn't interrupt it and had the whole fight throughout the back half of the movie. So if this is only the first part of this final trilogy of movies, I cannot wait to see what the other two have in store. Like, I kind of know some plot stuff just because the wiki is bad at hiding spoilers, but I do not know how those plot points connect to what I've just watched in this movie, so I'm really excited to see what goes on in the next two movies. So I'm going to give a rating for this movie on a couple of different fronts. The rating scale I'm going to give is 0 to 5 and Inosuke's coming through. I'm going to talk about how enjoyable the movie was, how rewatchable it is, if there's any kind of sophistication in the story that people might enjoy, and how coherent the story is. So enjoyability, you've heard me blab on about this for however long this video is going to be. This is a 5 out of 5 Inosuke's. If you love the TV series, you're going to love this movie. If you like hype fight scenes, you're going to like this movie. For rewatchability, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 Inosuke's. Like, yes, 2.5 hours is a long movie. Like, it's longer than The Godfather, I'm pretty sure. But I was talking to one of my friends, and she was saying, oh, I'll just wait for all the movies to come out and then watch them back to back to back. And I said, oh, this first one's 2.5 hours. You're going to be sitting down for a long ass time. And she was like, I'll wear a diaper, don't worry. I don't blame her. Like, when all of the movies are released and they're all released in sub, I might also like sit down and watch them all back to back to back, just make a literal day out of it, because at this point that's probably how long it's going to take to watch all three of them. For sophistication, also give it 3 out of 5 Inosuke's. Demon Slayer is not the most in-depth or complex story. It's a really basic shonen anime kind of plot. Like, oh, something happened to my family and I gotta defeat the big bad to make it better, and I gotta train to get stronger. That describes at least a dozen different shows off the top of my head. What this does better than all those other types of shows, like I've mentioned multiple times, is the animation. That is like the major saving grace for me for this series, and the reason why it is so popular is it just looks incredible. For coherence, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 Inosuke's, with the major drawback being that pacing issue that the movie has just because of how long it is and how it focuses its attention in different places for however long. So as an overall score, I'm going to give Demon Slayer Infinity Castle Arc Part 1 4 out of 5 Inosuke's. This was my most hyped movie of the year, and I really hope that me blabbering on about this for however long does convince you to go see it. So I guess as a question of the day, what has been your most hyped movie of 2025, and did it live up to its expectations? Let me know down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get your library card and check out everything else that I'm going to have going on here coming up. I hope you enjoyed your visit to the Library of Rhodes, and I hope to see you again real soon. Bye bye.